We're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust.
We are partway through our 4-week campervan road trip around the Shetland and Orkney Islands, and we are now on the Orkneys.
So if you've seen any of the other videos in this series, you'll know that we've already had 2 fantastic weeks on the Shetland Islands, and we've now moved south to the Orkneys.
And we have to be really honest with you, we've been on the Orkneys nearly a week now, and we just have got so behind on filming because, for all the right reasons, the weather has just been unbelievable.
Yeah, we keep waiting for a day or two where the rain comes and we can just have a van day, but it just doesn't happen. We've had nearly 3 weeks of beautiful sunshine, so we are catching up today.
So breaking it down into chunks, have a look what we got up to in our first 24 hours on the Orkneys.
By the time the ferry had docked, it was actually almost midnight, so we found ourselves a park for the night and we ended up at Skara Beach. And when we woke up in the morning, it was actually really pretty. We did hear a few ships going past in the night because I think it's got a bit of a harbour there, but it was fine.
Which is less than could be said for the ferry crossing because it was really quite rough. It was, yeah, we were just probably on the edge of our comfort zone, weren't we?
Yeah, I was feeling a little bit rough. I went very quiet for an hour or two, but we did get there in one piece. After we woke up, we set off north to the Brough of Birsay. The main reason still being that I thought we might have a last chance of seeing the puffins. And actually there's a really nice Viking old settlement that you can explore and an old monastery if you can get across to the tidal island.
Yeah, we absolutely rode our luck because we just drove up there absolutely oblivious to the fact it was a tidal island, and as we got there the walkway was just clear, so we had probably a good 2 to 3 hours to go and explore the island, and it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, we explored all the Viking ruins, and then you could walk along the cliffs, and actually it's not that far around the island. I think it's about 2.5 kilometre circular walk. We did look for the puffins, but there weren't any. There were a couple of little rocky coves that we could go down to, and lots of viewpoints along the way, so it was good.
I think Jackie's gone a little bit light on the history front because it was absolutely amazing. There was a proper Viking settlement which had got drainage remnants, and it had even got a sauna, which just blew my mind. Otter being living 1,000 years ago. And then obviously Christianity takes over, and there was a monastery on the island as well, which was equally impressive. So much history there, so much so we decided to stay.
We had also spotted that the car park that we were on to go across to the tidal island was on park for the night, and it had the most amazing views, one across the tidal island and two across to the different cliffs. So we decided that we'd stay there for the night. It wasn't as quiet as we'd been on the Shetland Islands. We were joined with quite a few other vans, but I quite like safety in numbers, and as long as we all moved on in the morning, which we did, it's fine to stay there.
As you would expect, we'd got an action-packed day planned, so have a look and see how we got on the following day. As you can see, we started the day off with a healthy dose of history by going to see the Kitchener Memorial. I wasn't aware of what a role the Orkneys played in the First World War and the naval battles that were involved in there. And Kitchener, the figurehead behind the "Your Country Needs You" poster, he lost his life on a ship that went down just off the Orkneys, and that memorial is there to remember all the lives that were lost in the naval battles around the islands.
After that, we kept heading south. We were aiming for Scale Beach, which is actually where Skara Brae, the very famous Neolithic ruins, are based. We were hoping that we could get in and have a look around that day, but there weren't any slots left in the morning, and it was due rain in the afternoon. So instead of doing the sensible thing and sitting in the van, we decided we'd go for a bit of a hike along the beach. And wow, it was amazing. We went right down to the end of the beach. It got really stormy and windy. I thought we were going to get absolutely pelted on, but it didn't. But the wind brought the waves crashing against the cliffs. It was just immense. And then it cleared again, and we came back along this white sandy beach with blue seas, had a bit of a play doing some handstands, and it was almost like the storm had blown over.
But we had to think of alternative arrangements, so that obviously involves a few brewery visits, and there were two local breweries in the area. So as we were hunting down these breweries, we stumbled upon a historic farm museum, which we both found really interesting.
It was actually. I was not really bothered whether we went in or not. He sold me on the fact that they had 2 Shetland Island sheep, some rare breeds, but it was really, really good. It was quite fascinating going into the old farmhouse. I did liken it later to the fact that it was very similar to Skara Brae, the houses that we saw that were reconstructed there.
And then before we rounded the day off at the brewery, I had a little giggle because I wanted to visit an airfield that has a very famous name that I'm not going to mention, but hopefully we'll put it on a slide. And what turned out to be a childish bit of humour actually was a really good visit, because this airfield that had been set up just for the Second World War was open to the public, and you could just wander around, and we had a great little wander and a bit of history, a bit of a leg stretch. and it was a good experience.
I had a great time at the breweries because I wasn't driving. We did sample a couple of beers, I had a pint, and then we did purchase a few as well so that you could have some later in the day.
But back to the important stuff, we booked tickets for Skara Brae the following morning, so have a look and see how we got on at Skara Brae. When we first planned this trip a few years ago, one of the things that we absolutely wanted to see was Skara Brae.
As a primary school teacher, I taught year threes and the curriculum was the Stone Age, Iron Age, and Skara Brae was something that I taught quite frequently, so I was desperate to go.
And it was just amazing. We had a great morning there. The light conditions were superb. We just about avoided the crowds, but I think it's almost impossible to do at such a honeypot location. But what a wonderful experience. And, you know, I keep banging on about it, but it just fries my brain to think that where we were wandering, there were people wandering 5,000 years ago. You know, that's before the pyramids. And the houses were incredibly intact, weren't they?
Yeah, they were incredibly well preserved by a huge sand dune, and it was only in about the late 1800s that they were uncovered again.
I've still got more questions about it because I still can't really get it clear in my own head as to where these people came from or how they got onto the islands. But yeah, what a wonderful experience, and absolutely fulfilled what we wanted to get out of the trip.
And talking of wonderful experiences, we tend to use the Wild Guide of Scotland to find some of the more wild and hidden places, and something on my list was to go to Yesnaby Castle Sea Stack because it's in the Wild Book. I didn't really know what to expect. I just knew it was going to be some sort of little sea stack out to sea. It was enormous. It was just incredible, and I was quite fascinated when you got close to it. It also had a big hole right through the middle of it, almost like a needle.
Yeah, it was a beautiful place and just a prime example of what Mother Nature can do to rocks. Incredible.
Yeah, and it's just nice that we went for a really lovely walk and we spoke to quite a few people along the way, which is quite social, and it was just such a pretty place to be.
So after 3 nights wild camping, we were ready for a campsite and hot showers and all the luxuries that affords. So we stayed at the Point of Ness campsite in Stromness.
And it was also ideally located for the following day because we were getting a ferry to Hoy.
And it was a Saturday night, so we cracked a bottle of wine, we set up the seats to look out over the sea and just let the evening peter away to a beautiful sunset.
It was a bit of a bun fight to get a spot at the campsite because we had just turned up and most people were really organised and had booked their pictures. The Orkneys are definitely a lot busier than the Shetland Islands, but we did get a spot, and actually we got one of the better ones that overlooked the sea. The facilities were really, really good, and that's the main reason we'd booked into the campsite, and it had a little communal room that had a microwave and a TV. We were going to watch the Olympics, but I think we had one glass of wine too many and never quite made it up there.
But on to more important things. Ideal time to cut to rate my shower. So welcome to the Point of Ness campsite. The first thing that strikes me is the space and the cleanliness of the showers. I really love the wet room style floor, which allows for quality drainage and cleanliness, and we've got a revisit of the old favourite, the electric shower. No push button problems here. The added benefit of a variable shower head is always a positive. Ensuite facilities are always a benefit, and the light and airy windows really help with the feeling of space. A major oversight here with only one hook in the shower room, a real rookie mistake. Nice use of cactus decor, but no bonus points for this. So in summary, the Point of Ness campsite, a really strong performance, with positives being based around the space, the cleanliness, and all things to do with the hot water. The only real negative is the rookie mistake of a lack of hanging options and flat storage space to put your shower stuff on. Overall, however, a very credible score of 45 out of 50.
Morning.
Morning.
So we're at the Point of Ness campsite and we're about to set off to get the ferry to the Isle of Hoy. We have had an amazing night. We have had a pitch that's got sea views. We've had an amazing sunset. What more do you need?
Getting over to Hoy is not quite as simple as it sounds, because the ferries on the Orkneys, you have to book them online. So we have managed to secure a booking to get out there, and 2 days later we're coming back. So we'll just see how we go. Looking forward to a little bit of an island adventure.
So as you can see from the video, we had the most wonderful time on Hoy. It's very different to the rest of mainland Orkney, but it is beautiful.
We had a great 48 hours. It was so much quieter than the mainland, and it was definitely our sort of place. A little bit more difficult to get to. Not many people get there, but definitely worth the effort.
And although you can get your campervan across to the Isle of Hoy, there are actually no campsites, but they do have an amazing park up. It's on the other side of the island. It's by a place called Racwick Bay, and it's within easy walking distance of the Old Man of Hoy, so it was a bonus all round.
It was a childhood ambition of mine to go to see the Old Man of Hoy. Back in the day on TV, there was a documentary done with Chris Bonington climbing the Old Man of Hoy, and I remember sitting there as a kid looking at this massive stack of rock and thinking, my gosh, it's in the middle of nowhere. I need to go there. So for me, it was just wonderful to visit the Old Man of Hoy.
And the hike was fantastic. You have to hike about 3 kilometres over the RSPB moorlands, and that's pretty in itself along the cliffs. And then you can see from about 1.5 kilometres out the stack just coming out of the sea. And at first I was like, oh, that can't be it. I know we've got at least 2 kilometres to go, and it looked really close, but it is huge. And when we got to the cliffs, I have to say, at one point I was kneeling and almost lying down to peer over the cliffs to see it because they are so high.
It was a little bit freaky, but then coming back to the bay where we stayed, just a really wild bay. Felt almost Icelandic in terms of its massive cliffs. The beach was pretty special.
Oh, wow. I likened it to walking across a beach that's just full of dinosaur or dragon's eggs. There were huge boulders that you could sort of rock hop on, which made it quite easy to get across the beach. But some of them were covered in seaweed nearer the sea, which were bright green. And each rock was all individually coloured. Some were like a purple colour, some were stripy. It was almost like looking at a rainbow of rocks going down to the sea. It was so lovely.
And then the rest of the island, there's not a massive amount to do, to be fair. There's a couple of museums that I absolutely loved. The first one being the sort of Community Lighthouse Museum. Very different in the fact that I could just engage my inner child and they allowed you to climb all over and inside the lifeboat. It was amazing. Wonderful sort of hour of our time spent. And then I went to the Scapa Flow Museum. I think we can be really honest, and Jackie had no interest in it at all. But in terms of its role in the First and the Second World War, it was a really well done museum, completely free, very, very intriguing, and yeah, worth a visit.
Something of note if you are thinking of going to Hoy in your camper van is that the Park for the Night up at Rackwick Bay also had toilets, which was very handy seeing so we have no facilities. I don't know about Richard, but so far on the trip that we've done all around Shetland and the Orkneys, Hoy has actually been one of the highlights of the trip for me.
It's a go-to destination if you come into the Orkneys, but it is a little bit tricky, so we thought we'd try and pull together some top tips for you if you are wanting to visit Hoy. First of all, the ferries. There's two options to get to Hoy. You can go on the car ferry or you can go on the foot passenger ferry. The car ferry, you do need to book, and you need to book in advance. It hasn't got a massive capacity and it doesn't go very often per day, so you do need to book that.
Yeah, so the ferry from Stromness as a foot passenger takes you to the top end of the island, and if you're into hiking, it's probably a 10-12k round trip to hike to the Old Man of Hoy, and there's some really pretty hills up there. You can also go as a foot passenger to the bottom end of the island where the Scapa Flow Museum is, so just think carefully which ferry you get.
And in terms of if you are taking your camper van across there, you probably need to be a little bit more organised than we were, because we tended to bounce up and down the island so many times. And if we were looking to do it in a perfect way, with hindsight, we'd have probably still spent 2 nights on Hoy. We'd have gone into the south, we'd have done all the museums in the south, headed our way up to the northern camping area, stayed there overnight, done Hoy, had another night over there, and then looked to catch the morning ferry back, because we think 48 hours is probably enough on the island.
I have to say, after our little excursion onto Hoy, if you are planning on a trip to the Orkneys, it definitely needs to be on your bucket list.
So we've been on the Orkneys now for just about a week. We're heading back to the mainland, and then in our next video we are going to jet off again to find some of the smaller outlying islands that surround the beautiful mainland. So we will catch you later. See you later. Bye.
Bye.